I'm going to talk about being bilingual. Some people hold the belief that it's good to be bilingual. And I will tell you that, I'm going to tell you my opinions. My parents spoke three different languages. And when I was a child, I was exposed to all three of those languages: English, Italian, and their dialect, which is different than Italian. So when I was a kid, I didn't know the difference between Italian and the dialect. Oh, no, my mother didn't speak. No, no, okay, both of my parents did. But some of the family didn't speak it, all three languages. So when we were around all the family, they would speak in the dialect because that is what everybody spoke. And Italian was when you have guests over or something like that. So I'm guessing that probably what I heard most of the time was the dialect. But like I said, I didn't know the difference. And when I was in school, I studied French, which was a huge mistake, huge disaster. Disaster not only for, I should have studied Spanish, but it's a complete disaster for our educational system, completely useless. I used French once in my life. I was in Canada. We were stopped for gas. My father said, go in and pay. I went in, I paid the guy, and then I said, merci, and then I left, and that was the only time I spoke French in my life. So I went to college and I studied German and I studied more French and I studied Italian. And it's possible that I may have studied another language and just forgotten about it. Because even though I knew Italian, I didn't really know, I didn't have a formal education in Italian. So this is when I started to learn, okay, this is the structure, this is how you spell the words, things like that. And it was different than what I had heard growing up because I realized, okay, my parents were speaking the dialect. So in the end, I ended up moving to a Spanish-speaking country. I wish I had studied Spanish. Because of my background with French and Italian, and because I'm a pretty intelligent person, I picked up Spanish. I taught myself how to speak Spanish, and I speak fairly well. So we hear in the news, we say, oh, it's great to be bilingual, it's great to be bilingual. Well, I don't 100% agree. Teaching your child to be bilingual just because it's great to be bilingual is stupid. One of the problems may be true in your family, but it was definitely, you may have, I guess it depends on your experience, but one of the problems you have when you teach your child a second language, they go to school and the school may be taught in the one language like English, but your child doesn't know the difference. So your child's in kindergarten speaking a language that he doesn't realize that the other students or the teacher might not know. And it does happen. It happened to my brother and my older brother, and the school had to tell my parents that they don't understand what he's talking about. So my father said, David, we're not going to teach you Italian. He outright told me that. And I remember this happening. I remember when all this was going on. So I said, no big deal, don't worry about it. And they really didn't teach my brother Italian either. They just stopped. Now, my father stuck to that. From that point onward, it was always English. My mother, however, did not. My mother, up until the day that I left, 18 years old, always spoke in Italian. Unless, of course, there were maybe if there were other people in the room that did not understand Italian, she would probably speak in English. But how often does that happen? It was rare. She spoke Italian all the time. And it caused small problems. When I was in school, I was in home ec class, and the teacher said, hand me that dish rag. And we were all in the kitchen area of home ec class, and I turned around and looked, and I was like, what's a dish rag? And I said, what's a dish rag? And she just sat there and yelled at me and said, you're being stupid, stop being an idiot. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they pointed at the dish rag, there was a stove with the handle going across, and it was draped over that. And it was within arm's reach. It was kind of like right to the side of me. But like I said, had no clue what she was talking about. And then there was another day, this was also in home ec, and you can see where the pattern's going, right? Where the teacher says, I know it's dumb that we're learning this in school. Okay, so you're going to take your clothes, you just washed them, you're going to fold your clothes, and you're going to put them in the dresser. And I raised my hand, and I said, what's a dresser? And she said, shut up. I was sitting all the way in the back, and I turned to my friend, and I said, what's a dresser? And she said, it's something you put clothes in. And I was like, oh, okay. So I never heard the word dresser before. I didn't know what it was. And it was at this point that I realized that I did not know a lot of English. I didn't know English words for anything inside the house, such as dresser. We called it a commode. That's what it was called. And a dish rag, mopine. That's what it was, like a mop, but small. Mopine means small mop, right? Not hard to figure out. So it caused small problems, some small embarrassment. And of course, the home ec teacher was a person who got triggered easily. She was always angry over everything. One day something happened. She told us always make sure the stove is off because it could start a fire. So at the end of the year, I might have been the one that did this. I don't remember. She said that someone turned off the stove and there was something cooking in it because it was pizza or something like that, because they do a pizza party. The class makes pizza, and she said because someone in our class did it, that we would have no pizza party, so she can't start pizza party. That's bitchy. She was a real bitch. Keep in mind, like I said, she had told us always turn off the stove, and I might have been the one who was standing there and saw, because I would never be near her. I'm always going to be far away from her. And I may have been the one who was standing next to the stove and saw it on and turned it off. I don't remember, but if you told me that I did it, I would say that there's a chance that I did. So I moved to South America when I was 38, and I'm going to argue that the vast majority of people are not going to move to a foreign country where they need to learn a foreign language. And not only that, English is spoken all over the world. You can get by with English in South America, in a Spanish-speaking country. There were tons of businesses in English, especially if you're in a more developed area. When you go to the lesser developed area, you're going to still see tons of businesses in English, but you're going to see a lot of it in Spanish. They love English. And there's a lot of people that speak English. They will not tell you that they do. They hide the fact that they do, but they do. And in Peru, there was English everywhere. In the Philippines, everybody speaks English. My favorite one is turn left, which is, of course, they point right and they say, I say turn left. They say turn left and they point right. They had that happen a few times. So I'm not a strong believer that everybody needs to learn a second language. Oh, well, it's good for your brain or whatever. Yeah, whatever. Come on. It's good for business, but they don't teach business languages. It's good for business to learn Chinese or to learn German or Japanese, but they don't teach those languages in American schools. They teach French, which is good for virtually nothing. There's not enough people in the world that speak French. It's not worth it to spend all those years learning French so that you can go on vacation. In some of our French classes, some of the students were offered the opportunity to go to France with the teacher, and either it wasn't offered to me or I knew that my parents would just never be able to afford it because I came from a poor family, poor bilingual family. So Spanish, yeah, it's good that people are learning Spanish, but the other thing is you are not at a disadvantage in the United States if you don't know Spanish. It's just not true. You're at a disadvantage if you don't know English. If you don't know English, you're not going to go as far as someone who does in the United States. It's just fact. Another fact is if you do learn Spanish, for the vast majority of people, you're not going to need to speak to someone in Spanish. I worked in the United States. I worked with Russians and I worked with Chinese people that did not speak English, and they had to translate everything. And it was always funny because, when you go and invite someone to go do something, because he was a cool guy, we would go and say, hey, you want to go have lunch or whatever. He would just have no idea. If we would say we were going to go bowling, he had no idea where we were inviting him. You write down on a piece of paper 9 p.m. Tuesday and give it to him here, that's what you would do. And he was always happy to go with us, but he had no clue what we were talking about. So in my work experience, I never had to speak Spanish. And I own a business where I had over 1 million customers, and I did telephone support. And I hired customer service people who were bilingual English and Spanish, and we did other languages too, but there was not a demand for the other languages. We had French and Chinese and German and other languages I don't remember. And I would occasionally ask, did you get any phone calls in Spanish? And we actually had a Spanish phone number, and it was rare. It would be like, oh, one in a month. Or they would talk and they would say, oh, you know what, it's easier if we speak in Spanish or something like that. So there was some Spanish communication from my American business for customer service, but it was so rare. It was not 10% or 5%. It was probably 1% of the calls were in Spanish. And I believe they told me that, yeah, they spoke English, but we preferred to speak in Spanish. It's no big deal. So I'm not a firm believer that teaching bilingual languages in the United States is a great idea. As a computer programmer, we learn programming languages. And I learned many different languages like Perl and Pascal and Turtle and Logo and C and F Basic, Basic. There were others that I really don't remember because when you learn Basic, it's different on different computers. Every computer had a different Basic. There's no standard. And guess what? At some point, I said, I'm going to stick to Perl. Okay, PHP and Python were two more. There was a day when I did the Adobe Shockwave and Java. There was a day that I said, stick to one, Perl, that's it. Wasted time trying to learn two languages. Anything I need to do, I do it better in Perl. That's the reason why. I only did it in the other language if it was absolutely necessary, which meant that either someone ordered me to do it or that I had to use someone else's program that was already written that way. And guess what? Someone did order me to write in Python. That was the week before 9/11, and he fired everybody because of 9/11. Because what happened was all of our clients were in the World Trade Center, so he fired people. He lost his business. So I'm not a huge supporter. If you don't know two languages and you don't use two languages, it's not the big deal that everybody purports it to be.